Do you want the cat?
No, the cat's alright. Hi Simon. Well, you want to just introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Simon Kingham. I'm a Professor of Geography at the University of Canterbury.
Cool. And so we met a couple of years ago when we were doing it when I was at Sarah, and your first year students were doing some community mapping and some activities around looking at local geographical areas and what that means. And so one of the things that's come up from the projects that the information hubs have applied for is that community mapping is a really sort of important thing for them to do. So I thought it would be really good to have a chat with you. We can use new technology to do this. You don't have to come to us. Just have a chat to you about community mapping. Why community mapping? What does it look like? And how can it be used effectively for strengthening communities? So community mapping. What's it about?
So the idea of community mapping is you actually get people to physically mark on a map the things they like, or where important places are, or where they consider their community to be.
Okay.
And the importance, and I think the plus of doing that over just a regular survey, is that a lot of people have an idea of what their place is like, and you can ask someone, do you like living where you live? But actually, people, their views about this actually vary quite geographically. So it may be that there's some things in your community you really, really like. It may be that you really like the areas directly around you, but actually things further away you have a very little interaction with, or there are some parts you don't like. In some cases, through community mapping, you can identify places that you'd like to share with other people that they might not know about. So it may be that I have a really nice place I go for a walk, and my neighbour wants to go for a walk, but she doesn't know a good place to go, or he doesn't know a good place to go. So that sort of information you can share.
So part of the community mapping is not only just looking at what's in the community, what people think about it, but also there's an opportunity there to increase connection around what people think is really good.
Absolutely. And it can also be, I get a haircut somewhere and this place is a really good place, and you can actually share this information. So it's using kind of social media to some extent to sort of share information about local things you like or don't like. But you can also do it to highlight areas you think need a bit of improvement. So you can say, I really like this park, but I think it needs a bit of work on it. So that sort of stuff as well.
So, and from that information, you can use that to either get a sense of how the community is feeling about certain areas, and maybe use that as an advocacy tool.
Absolutely.
Or increasing engagement around certain things.
So it can be used in different ways. One is that it's just a way of sharing information, so that you can mark on a map, say that I found this really nice walk or place where I can take my dog, and I can then get that information from you through a map and go and use it. But it can also be for community leaders to actually say, this is what our community feel about the place. These are places they really like, so we don't need to worry about them. These are places we don't.
And those opinions are not just based on someone who's part of an organisation, but actually based on
the actual community.
On evidence.
Absolutely. I think often community leaders have a really good feel for their community, but this actually empowers them. And sometimes maybe they don't, or maybe they know they don't, and this allows them to actually get that.
So the process is is it you go out and you knock on people's doors, or what are the sort of tools in terms of gathering the information that you're familiar with?
Lots of different ways. So you can knock on doors and talk to people, you can knock on doors and give them a survey. They're quite time intensive, so it helps that you've got a lot of people who can help. You can set up online surveys or online mapping tools, but obviously you need to accept that some people aren't going to fill them in. So if you've got people who are less computer savvy, particularly older people perhaps, they're not going to fill it in, so you might need to target them differently. And then there's other ways. We've done some work going into schools, or working with schools, where the schools actually administer some of this stuff. Now that's fantastic because you understand around kids. We've also had some work with some students recently going into a community place where lots of older people, or people with mental health problems went to, and they actually went and they fed them there. So those people would not fill in a survey probably. So these harder to reach communities, but who are really important. And often they're the ones who need this information more. So there's lots of different ways of doing it.
And so is there also an opportunity to increase engagement by asking people whether they want to participate in the community? Would that be something that in a survey development, if you choose to go and do a survey, then asking people how they participate, or if they participate, would that be something that would be kind of common in a mapping kind of tool?
Absolutely, because some people they might feed in, but they don't want to know much more about it. So there's things about how much they're engaged, how well they understand their community. Because there's interesting things with community leaders or resident associations or whatever. about how they get their messages out. So you actually want to understand, do people want the messages? Are they getting it? Are they feeling well informed or under-informed? There's also really important issues about how you get that information back to them afterwards. So if people fill in a survey, it's really important, or they complete anything like this, it's really important that you tell them what they found out so they can see how their views fit with the rest of the community.
So for instance, if so for the information hubs, for instance, that we're working with, they're a group of 11 organisations that connect well with their local communities. They usually have newsletters and social media.
Yeah.
So quantifying and looking reflectively and critically at how effective those means of communications could be really useful for those hubs.
Very important.
So you've been working in a number of different communities across the east with your first year students.
That's right.
So I think it's been Parklands,
Avondale, and then Burwood.
And Burwood. So
yeah.
So and each one of those has been slightly different.
That's right. So we had a class of over 100 first year students who went out and collected data and then analysed it and did some mapping. Parklands, we worked with the Parklands Network, which is a range of organisations. It included the Residents Association, it included churches, schools, etc. Avondale was the Residents Association, and it was a fairly confined area in Avondale. Yeah. And then Burwood was with a community leader, and we also had some interaction with the Residents Association, but the community leader himself in a way didn't have a formal community leadership role, but everyone acknowledged that he was the key person. Yeah. So we did it in different ways. The ways we did the work was the same, so the students went out knocking on doors, handing surveys, and then collecting them a week later. And that way worked well for that because we had 100 students to go and collect it. Yeah. If you've only got 5 people, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that because it would take an enormous amount of time.
So, so utilising new technologies may be more efficient in that way.
Yeah. And acknowledging the limitations of using technologies, that you're not going to reach some groups.
Yeah, and so lastly, just around that, when you kind of get to the point where you kind of gathered all this information, what are your kind of advice on sort of, so you've got this heaps of information. Not everybody is able to process that or has the time to process that, or how important is it to find someone or people in the community that for that part of the work?
Yeah. So if you've collected information in terms of mapping, you want to be able to disseminate and people be able to see it, and ultimately electronic ways are probably the way you do that. And of course there's some people who won't be able to access them, so you want to set up maybe community hubs where people can go and see that sort of stuff if they can't do it at home. But what you really want, there's different technologies to use this. We use a thing called geographic information systems. Yeah. There's free, the one we use is a paid system, but there is a free part of that, but there are also some free ones. What you really want is someone who understands the technology a bit. Now you only need one person in your community because they will probably have the wherewithal and nous to do it. Yeah. We, for instance, teach this to our second year students and third year students, so maybe if you've got someone who's done it at university, someone who works in IT.
And some people really enjoy putting data in and seeing pictures on the screen, and they get excited about that.
Yeah, and they'll love the challenge, but you just need one person because the learning curve is steep. So if you haven't done it, it's going to be really difficult. Yeah. But you just need one person who has.
So they'd be either people with GIS skills or so what sort of so for people that are looking, what sort of I guess what sort of jobs or professions would have those sort of skills? Would it be
so if anyone who's done surveying, engineers would now do it, transport planners, those sorts of skills, environmental scientists, anyone who's done a geography degree should probably have some.
So information hubs, and also if they're using Volunteer Canterbury or they've got their own way of recruiting volunteers, they'd be asking for people with GIS skills from the following professions to maybe give a couple of hours or maybe a maximum of 10 hours to process the information if it's there, or have a look at it and see how long it would take.
Maybe something the Student Volunteer Army may have someone for that, possibly. So there's different. There are people with those skills. It's just identifying them.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you. I think that we'll continue the conversation. That's been a really excellent kind of this is what community mapping is, and sort of thinking about how it's being used locally, and also that it's not something out there, but actually it's a really useful way of informing practice as you go around developing communities and strengthening them. So thanks for that, and we'll catch up soon. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Sorry about that beep at the last. That was unfortunate.